Imagine for a moment that you are in a dream. In this dream, you are walking through a city you know well, but something feels off. The colors are a little too bright, the sounds a little too crisp, and the people seem to be following a script you can almost hear. You have this nagging feeling, a whisper in the back of your mind, that nothing around you is quite real. But you push it aside because what else are you supposed to do? You have to keep walking, keep engaging, keep living in the dream. This, in a way, is what the French thinker Jean Baudrillard asked us to consider about our own world. He proposed that we have, in many ways, lost touch with a fundamental reality and now live in a vast simulation, a copy of a copy that has replaced the original. And he argued that this is the ultimate expression of our capitalist system, a dream world built not just to sell us things, but to shape our very understanding of what is true and what is possible. You probably recognize that stubborn feeling of being right, that deep-seated confidence in your own perception of how the world works. We all have it. It is the anchor we cling to in a confusing life. But Baudrillard would gently ask us to question that anchor. He suggested that our reality is now largely made of symbols and signs that refer not to a real thing, but to other symbols. Think of the way we experience nature, not by walking into an untouched forest, but by visiting a perfectly manicured national park with designated trails, signs, and a gift shop at the entrance. We are experiencing a carefully managed idea of nature, a simulation of it that is safe, predictable, and consumable. The real, untamed, unpredictable wilderness has been replaced by a more convenient version. This is what he called the simulacrum. Remember when you were a child and you realized a deeply held belief, maybe about Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy, wasn't quite true. There was that moment of cognitive dissonance where the story you had always accepted suddenly clashed with new evidence. It is a universal experience. For a second, your entire understanding of the world wobbled. Baudrillard's entire philosophy is like that moment of wobbling, but for our entire society. He pushes us to ask, what if the economic stories we tell ourselves, the political narratives we fight over, and the social ideals we chase are also like that? What if they are comforting stories that have become detached from a more complex and perhaps less comfortable truth? Many of us cling to familiar ideas because they give us a sense of stability and identity, but that clinging might be what keeps us asleep inside the dream. This system did not happen by accident. Baudrillard saw it as the final stage of capitalism, where the primary goal is no longer just the production of material goods, but the production of needs, desires, and ultimately, an entire model of reality that ensures we keep consuming. Our dream world is not just filled with products, it is a product itself. We are sold ideas of freedom, success, rebellion, and happiness that are all predefined and packaged for us. Think about the act of buying a vintage band t-shirt from a major mall retailer. You are not purchasing an artifact of a countercultural movement. You are purchasing a mass-produced symbol of a rebellion that has been sanitized, repackaged, and sold back to you, completely stripped of its original context and danger. The symbol has replaced the substance. The map has become the territory. As Baudrillard himself put it, it is no longer a question of imitation, nor of reduplication, nor even of parody. It is a question of substituting the signs of the real for the real. There is a natural tension we all live with, a quiet war between our instinctive thinking and a deeper, often suppressed awareness. On one hand, we want to believe in the dream. It is familiar, and it is what everyone else seems to be participating in. It is easier to go along with the script. On the other hand, we have these moments of piercing clarity where the facade seems to thin. It is the feeling you get when you see a stunningly beautiful, highly filtered image on social media, and you simultaneously admire it and feel a pang of insecurity about your own unfiltered life. In that moment, you are sensing the simulation. You are aware that you are comparing your reality to a perfected illusion, and it creates a deep, personal unease. That unease is the friction between the simulated world and your innate understanding that there must be something more, something real beyond the copy. We all fool ourselves sometimes because the dream is incredibly persuasive. It is designed to be. It offers us community, purpose, and an easy identity. To question it is to risk feeling isolated and unmoored. But the first step toward any kind of awakening is simply to acknowledge the possibility that the world presented to us is a construction. It is to look at the advertisements, the news cycles, the political spectacles, and even our own consumer choices, and ask, what is this really pointing to? Is it pointing to a genuine human need or experience? Or is it pointing to another symbol, another layer of the dream? This is not about finding a simple answer, but about embracing a more questioning, curious state of mind. It is about realizing that the most powerful act might be to consciously choose which parts of the dream we engage with, and to never fully forget that it is, in fact, a dream. This cracks open the entire question of what's real and what's a carefully constructed performance designed to make us buy, believe, and belong. We start noticing that the world presented to us, the one we scroll through and aspire to, feels a little too perfect, a little too seamless. It's the initial itch, the first moment you question the glossy advertisement, not just for its product, but for the entire feeling it's trying to sell you. This is where our journey begins, in a place of simple observation. We see things at face value. A brand is just a brand. A news story is just a story. A political promise is just a promise. We operate on a surface level of signs and symbols, trusting that a like means appreciation and a sale means a good deal. Life feels straightforward because we haven't yet started to pull on the threads. Then we enter the confusing middle. And this is where things get intensely complicated and deeply uncomfortable. This is the phase Baudrillard prepares us for, where the map not only precedes the territory, but actively creates it, leaving us lost in a landscape of our own making. The initial clarity shatters. You start to see the simulations everywhere, the influencer's authentic morning routine that is perfectly lit and sponsored, the political rhetoric that seems designed solely to provoke a reaction rather than solve a problem, the entire economy of likes and shares that feels entirely disconnected from genuine human connection. Most of us feel uneasy during transitions like this, because the solid ground of reality we thought we stood on begins to feel like quicksand. You might be someone who resists change at first, wanting to go back to the simple view where things were just things. This is the challenge Baudrillard describes. We are confronted with a hyper-real world that is more real than real, a copy without an original, and it generates a profound sense of vertigo. Our old tools for understanding the world stop working, and we haven't found new ones yet. This disorienting middle phase is where we typically have our knee-jerk reactions. Baudrillard would contrast this unthinking response with a more thoughtful, seductive engagement with the system. The knee-jerk reaction is to either fully reject the simulation in anger, decrying everything as fake, or to fully embrace it in cynical irony, pretending nothing matters. Both are traps. The first leads to bitter exhaustion, the second to empty nihilism. They are reflexes, not responses. But if we sit with the discomfort, a new clarity begins to emerge. You may catch yourself pausing before reacting lately, before sharing that outraged post, or buying that must-have item. This pause is the beginning of a more thoughtful way of navigating the dream world. The new clarity isn't about escaping the simulation. Baudrillard would argue that's likely impossible. Instead, it's about understanding our role within it, with a kind of playful wisdom. It's the difference between blindly consuming the spectacle and consciously engaging with it, understanding its rules and its emptiness. We start to see that our power doesn't lie in a futile search for some pure, unmediated reality outside the system, but in how we choose to move within the system itself. We can reject the knee-jerk outrage and the performative consumerism, not with anger, but with a quiet, deliberate choice to invest our energy and belief in things that feel, if not perfectly authentic, at least more meaningful to us. It's about finding small pockets of genuine connection, creating things for the sake of creating them, and appreciating the real world that still exists beneath the layers of branding and signage. The clarity comes from accepting the game for what it is, which paradoxically allows us to stop being its most devoted players and to become its most interesting participants, finding our own meaning within the capitalist dream world rather than having one prescribed for us. Through this discomfort, we begin to see the faint outlines of a new path. It's not a sudden, blinding flash of light, but more like the slow, steady light of dawn after a very long night. The initial shock of realizing that so much of what we thought was us might actually be a collection of borrowed ideas and conditioned responses can be deeply unsettling. It feels like the ground beneath our feet has turned to sand. But this is the crucial part, the moment where we have a choice, to scramble back to the familiar, solid ground of the old self, even if it was confining, or to take a tentative step forward into this unknown, shifting landscape. And if we choose to step forward, something remarkable starts to happen. The sand begins to firm up, not into the same rigid, unyielding ground as before, but into something more resilient, something that moves with us rather than against us. This process isn't about erasing the person we were. It's about finally getting to meet them and to understand them with a newfound compassion. We start to see the old anxieties, the people-pleasing tendencies, the desperate need for control, not as personal failings, but as strategies. They were the best tools we had at the time to navigate a world that often felt overwhelming. We can thank that old version of ourselves for getting us this far. It worked hard to protect us. But now, we're learning a new language, a new way of being that doesn't require such heavy armor. We're learning to listen to a quieter, more authentic voice that was always there, just drowned out by the noise of expectation. And as we practice listening to that voice, you'll likely find daily decisions coming easier. What to eat for lunch, what to do with a free evening, whether to say yes or no to a social invitation. These small moments stop being fraught with the weight of, what should I do? And become simpler questions of what would feel right for me. It's a subtle but profound shift from living on autopilot, following the pre-programmed route, to actually taking the wheel. We might make a few wrong turns at first, but the destination is no longer fixed by someone else's map. We are drawing it ourselves, and that makes all the difference. This newfound agency begins to ripple out into every corner of our lives. Many notice old frustrations don't bother them as much. The driver who cuts us off, the long line at the grocery store, the critical comment from a relative. These things still happen, of course. The world doesn't change its chaotic nature, but our relationship to that chaos transforms. The reactions that used to be instantaneous and intense, the simmering anger, the plunge into self-doubt, begin to lose their power. They show up, but they don't move in and take over the place. We observe the frustration as a passing weather pattern in our mind, not a permanent climate. We can acknowledge it without becoming it. This isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about no longer being enslaved by it. This is where we move from theory into lived experience. It's one thing to intellectually understand that we are separate from our thoughts and feelings. It's another thing entirely to feel that space open up in a moment of real tension. It's the deep breath we take before responding instead of reacting. It's the pause where we choose kindness over being right. It's the conscious decision to walk away from a dynamic that we know is unhealthy, even if it's familiar. Each of these moments is a brick laid on our new path, solidifying it, making it more walkable, more real. And as we walk this path, we inevitably start to connect with others in a different way. When we are no longer so tightly wrapped in our own performance of self, we can actually see the other person. We can listen to understand, not just to craft our reply. Our conversations become less about exchange and more about connection. We find ourselves drawn to people who are also exploring this authenticity, and we gently create distance from those who insist on living solely within the confines of roles and masks. Our relationships become chosen, not just inherited or habitual. They become sources of genuine energy, not drains on it. This entire journey, from the first prickles of discomfort to the gradual emergence of a truer self, is ultimately about reclaiming a fundamental sense of agency. It's about moving from being a character in a story written by culture, family, and past experiences, to being the author of our own narrative. The author doesn't control every event in the story. Storms still come, characters act in unexpected ways, but the author infuses it with meaning, with purpose, with a point of view that is uniquely their own. This is a quiet revolution. There are no parades, no medals. The rewards are internal and often invisible to the outside world. They are felt in the quiet satisfaction of a choice that aligns with our values. They are felt in the warmth of a real conversation. They are felt in the peace that descends at the end of a day where we showed up as ourselves, fully and without apology. It's a reclaiming of our own attention, our own energy, our own one precious life. And it leads us to a kind of freedom that is difficult to describe until you've experienced it. It's not the freedom from something, like the freedom from responsibility or difficulty. It's a freedom within. It's the freedom to be amidst the chaos, to feel the full spectrum of human emotion without being destroyed by it, to engage with the world from a place of choice rather than compulsion. It feels less like breaking out of a prison and more like finally realizing you were never truly in one to begin. You just believed you were, and so you lived within those imagined walls. Together, we discover that the most profound journey we can ever take is the one inward, to the core of our own being. It's a journey back to ourselves, to a home we forgot we had but always longed for. And in finding it, we understand the beautiful, liberating truth that philosopher Jean Baudrillard pointed toward, that real freedom feels less like a triumphant conquest and more like a gentle, long-hour homecoming, like finally taking off shoes that never quite fit and feeling the solid, welcoming earth beneath your bare feet for the very first time.